The other day we talked a bit about how XDefiant wasn't going to be launching in just a hot drop format where it would just drop out of nowhere, and instead we'd see a dedicated date announced for it, we'd see times for preloads and more. While it still appears to be the case, today I wanted to continue the conversation a bit and talk a bit beyond launch, as Mark Rubin provided a bit more insight into the new map we can expect to see shortly after launch, a bit more about the launch window itself, and more. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Are you still looking forward to XDefiant? When do you think it'll launch? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it idle and insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things XDefiant, Modern Warfare 3, and more in the FPS space. I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at G-Fuel for 30% off your entire order with code ESPRESSO, but more on that a little later. For now, let's take a look at this new information for XDefiant. First, let's talk about where we're going to be actually starting, I guess, the game's launch. Of course, we don't have any specific date or details as to when the game will be downloadable and ready to go for launch. That much hasn't changed. But the interesting part is that since our last discussion is that we did get a bit more clarification surrounding perhaps the why things are the way they are that we have them right now. Replying to a thread that started with, "Are you still expecting the game to release in September?" and a follow-up that said the launch window they chose was super wide for a reason. It likely included backup plans for a range of scenarios. This isn't someone who's shipping their first game. I trust Mark Rubin to know what his team is capable of, and I think we'll be playing before September 22nd, which, again, technically speaking, is the end of summer, and that window that they gave us at Ubisoft Forward, saying that we'd end up seeing the game launch in summer of 2023. Mark Rubin then chimed in to say, correct, the easy way to do it would have been to give a date far enough out with plenty buffer based on the worst case scenarios, but who wants easy? Now, this is something that I've seen plenty of reactions to that look to be zeroing in on the wrong part of that. The correct mention doesn't appear to be in relation to the we'll be playing before September 22nd, but instead correct in the way of the launch window they chose was super wide for a reason. It likely included backup plans for a range of scenarios. While I'd love to say that that first assumption would be correct, that it's saying correct to playing before the 22nd, it goes against basically everything that the messaging for XDefiant has stuck with the last few weeks to months, that they're in that submission phase. This wouldn't be something that is just confirmed in a casual conversation, that unless you're looking at it, you wouldn't find it. The date itself, when we see the announcement, all that kind of stuff being made, will likely be on a much larger scale, likely coming from not only just the official XDefiant Twitter account, but also things like the overall Ubisoft Twitter accounts as well, not just a reply on a whim to a conversation in passing. So that's something to consider there, that it's might be taken out of context whenever you see that mention of it. But in addition to that, Mark kind of revealed the curtain on what some of the holdup may be for the current launch, at least to a degree, replying to a tweet that stated and alleged Microsoft is deliberately delaying the certification of XDefiant due to the acquisition of Activision. Sony has already approved the certification of the game, and XDefiant is now available in stores. He stated, no idea where this came from, but no, Sony hasn't approved the game yet, and Microsoft is not delaying anything. So on one hand, it kind of sounds like a bit of that is just on the PlayStation, and they're the reasons we're seeing this held up, and the final certification isn't going through just yet there. Though it doesn't explicitly say if it's through the Microsoft end, so it very well could be both still, but we do know for sure at least that Sony's certification still hasn't gone through, which as of 2 days ago, it's possible that could have changed, but also not really considering it likely with only 48 hours there. But interesting to hear that side of the story here with that, where we know at least one side of certification still has not gone through. Now, one thing interesting in regards to the timing of all of this, and maybe a sort of launch preview, is that according to an Intel account for XDefiant, it seems like the XDefiant full game was visible on the Ubisoft Connect app for a little bit, that showcased a bit of the achievements for the game. Full disclosure, when I went to check this out for myself, it was no longer available, which is certainly possible that it was wiped from the application if it went live prematurely, or was something that wasn't meant to be visible just yet, but we see some details that indicate challenges for career items like getting 500 kills with marksman rifles, sniper rifles, secondary weapons, completing the battle pass, earning player of the game 10 times, getting 500 kills with assault rifles, SMGs, and LMGs, winning 10 matches of Occupy, Escort, Zone Control, and Hotshot, along with a couple of other things, but with different sort of tiers to it. So a 1, 2, 3, and 4 level perhaps of these challenges, introducing different checkpoints along the way. So 500 was denoted as the tier 3 of this challenge. So maybe it's like 100, 250, 500, and 1,000 for some of those kill challenges. But anyways, all kind of easy stuff when it comes down to challenges when you consider it, though honestly most shooter achievements kind of are. Like if you ever actually looked at the COD actual achievements, not the challenges in game, a lot of them are pretty simple. But what I find the most interesting out of this is the timing of everything. While it's not necessarily public right now, even if it was for just a brief moment, and honestly, not to put the tinfoil hat on too quickly, but a lot of the times when we see achievements like this logged with their first-party platforms, like Sony for their trophies and Xbox for their achievement databases, that's anywhere from about 2 to 3 weeks before the launch of the game, indicating that if this was indeed legit, we might only be 2 to 3 weeks away if this trend holds up, and what we've seen historically is indeed the indicator that we are looking for. So again, not to hype anything up or put a tinfoil hat on, but that might be a bit more important than we initially consider if, again, this is legitimate. But we'll have to come back to see how this all plays out in time. Best case scenario, still a couple of weeks out if we are going off of that timing. And finally, let's talk a little bit about the future. Mark replied to one additional question here that I think is of important note, that coming from Rory Cooper, an avid follower here on the channel and over on Twitter, the question of if there will be a map similar to Shipment that players can grind out things on. To which Mark replied simply, I think you'll like the first map we release in Season 1. So a bit of the information for post-launch even, where we'll get a small close quarters and densely compact with a lot of gunfight action right up front here as the first additional map to the offering that we have for XDefiant. Now, for clarification, Season 1 is still a little ways away even after the launch of XDefiant. Again, we're still at earliest, I'd say, a couple of weeks away from the launch of XDefiant, but it was detailed before that we'd see a 6-week preseason for when the game launches until Season 1 kicks off. Something that allows players to rank up their weapons, work on a preseason battle pass, get acclimated with the maps, weaponry modes, and equipment and all that kind of stuff. But from there, it's detailed that each season will last 3 months and 4 seasons for the first year of XDefiant, with 3 maps among other things along the way for each season. So presumably about 1 map per month if you end up doing that math out. 3 maps per season, 3 months each season, 4 seasons each year. So that first one may be more close quarters and a grindy map, which is definitely cool. Honestly, I really enjoyed the arena map that Rory did mention here within his initial question. That is one that I think is a very grindable map as well. But when we take a look at it, having something like that that's dedicated just simply for, say, a camo grind would be a big benefit, I think, for XDefiant, that we'll see a bit to unlock between those unknown mastery camos and the camos like bronze, silver, and gold, which were all level dependent in the beta, assuming that stuff carries forward as such. So interesting for sure that we learned a bit more about the submission and launch process here upcoming for XDefiant, but also a little bit about what we can expect a little bit after launch as well. But that is what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you guys like what we've heard so far here out of this and the progression as we gear up for the launch, whenever that may be, of XDefiant? Looking forward to a grind-worthy map within Season 1. Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. Before we wrap everything up, make sure you check out my friends over at G Fuel. Code Espresso can get you up to 30% off certain items in the month of September, like hype sauce tubs, starter kits, and more. So if you guys want to try something out for the very first time or grab a restock, now is as best a time as any, but link in the description below if you guys want to check that out. Again, drop your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things XDefiant, Modern Warfare 3, and more in the FPS genre here on the channel. Love to have the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.